Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We are your home for Caribbean weather. Hey, it's great to see you on this Tuesday, the second day of the Atlantic hurricane season, and I do expect the opportunity to have some tropical development this week. We'll look at that and an area closer to home we're going to have to monitor as well. As always, love to hear from you guys. Let me know what's been happening in your area. Your 5-day forecasts are down below. We'll talk about building rain chances in some spots, but the Saharan dust really still playing a factor in the overall rain chance for a lot of our area. All the impactful weather is at the bottom of your screen. We'll start off with our weather headlines for today, which will talk about the heavy, even some flooding rain still in our northwest areas. It's the spots that have continued to been plagued by this activity, mainly through portions of the Yucatan, western sides of Cuba, and at least some heavy rain possible over the central and southern sides of Florida and the northern Bahamas as a front, very unusual for this time of the year, has been able to drop all the way down into South Florida and the northern Keys, and a very broad area of low pressure or just some spin in the atmosphere out in the central and the western sides of the Gulf. This is all going to play a factor in keeping this area quite wet over the next couple of days. We continue to see showers and storms break out over places like Cancun and Cozumel, on over towards Belize City. Even the Bay Islands have an opportunity for a couple of showers for today. This is all welcome news for those spots if you get some of that activity. Better thunderstorm chances are inland for today across the Yucatan and portions of Cuba. Now, it's going to get wet and stormy over central and the southern sides of Florida. As a matter of fact, here with some of the thunderstorm activity near West Palm, they've already had a nearly 50-mile-an-hour wind gust and the opportunity for some strong to severe storms to work their way over to portions of Walker's Key, Grand Bahama, the Abacos, New Providence, on over towards Andros and Eleuthera. Let me bring on the radar here out of the Miami area. I'm going to drop off the satellite data so it's just a little bit easier to see. And let's talk about some of the thunderstorms that are developing here late on this Tuesday afternoon. Mariners, boaters, watch out. A lot of lightning being produced to this, along with some gusty winds coming off the southern coastline of Grand Bahama, working its way over to places like Marsh Harbor, and then a few more thunderstorms developing back down towards Andros. New Providence getting hit pretty hard right now. Good thunderstorm over that area. Scattered thunderstorms are likely to switch east towards Eleuthera, and I can't even rule out a couple of thunderstorms going as far south as Exuma and Cat Island for today. Even a couple of lightning strikes near San Salvador. Again, a very impressive for this time of the year cold front that has been able to work its way this far south. It's a focusing mechanism for the thunderstorms to continue to develop. If you live in Miami towards Homestead and the Keys, additional heavy thunderstorms are likely here. Pockets of flooding rain are possible, and the rain chances just overall going up in these spots. This is the halves, no doubt about it, right? All the way back towards Bermuda, where the front is going to be stalling out, but severe thunderstorms are possible there to go along with a small craft warning, and you're going to see a lot of marine interest advisories here. The interesting thing about this is you get into the southern Bahamas and into the Turks and Caicos, and there's actually a Saharan dust advisory. That is where the drier air has come in. Now, it's a battleground between the moisture-laden air with the front and the Saharan dust, but it's pretty hazy right now in places like Grand Turk. And then for the rest of our area, we're seeing fairly hazy and dry conditions, which is extended all the way into places like Jamaica and the Cayman Islands for today. It's good to see just a little bit of thunderstorm activity trying to develop over Grand Cayman. It's going to be really spotty. There's not a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. An area that I expect to remain dry is going to be Jamaica. My friends there from Kingston, Portmore, and Spanish Town on over towards Montego Bay and Negril likely to stay dry and hot for today. Fahrenheit temperature in Montego Bay about 91 degrees. The winds are fresh though. Large wave and strong wind advisory is in effect for all the nearshore and offshore waters, including Pedro and Morant Banks. Likely to get a couple of thunderstorms to develop over portions of Hispaniola for today, but overall the rain chances will be lower than average for early June, and just a couple of spots there where we could see a few showers and storms. Earlier today, Santo Domingo had a good breeze. Port-au-Prince, Haiti, good showers as a possibility going along some breezy conditions. The winds are still whipped up over the Virgin Islands and portions of Puerto Rico. The air is dry. We have an extreme risk, if you will, for the Saharan dust layer to, again, cause issues for respiratory sufferers. So not a lot of rain chances here, but hazy sunshine is in the forecast for St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, on over towards San Juan and the British Virgin Islands, up towards portions of the Lesser Antilles, the Leeward Islands in general, Anguilla, St. Bart, Sabas, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda. Rain chances here are quite low the next couple of days as the Saharan air layer continues to work its way across. Same situation for Guadeloupe, Dominica, and Martinique. Small craft advisory is going into effect for places like Antigua and Barbuda for today, including the British Virgin Islands, especially for the offshore waters of the Atlantic coastlines of those islands. So keep that in mind. Barbados has had some general swells for today, but it's not too bad. St. Lucia, St. Vincent on over towards Grenada, T&T. When we take a look at the Saharan air layer, that's just going to continue to work its way through the region, and it's going to become more concentrated farther west later in the week. Should allow a few thunderstorms to redevelop back into the eastern side of the Caribbean, and then it's a little bit quieter dust-wise at the end of the week until the weekend, with another plume of Saharan air is likely to move right back into the eastern Caribbean. So you'll get a break in the action and try and elevate rain chances a bit in some of these island nations on Thursday and Friday, but don't expect it to last long. Those rain chances won't be sticking around forever with another drier air mass that'll be moving its way into the region. One spot that I desperately hope gets some rain, and I have that into the forecast for the weekend, is the ABC Islands. These winds are ripping. Bonaire, 37-mile-an-hour wind. Curacao, 33-mile-an-hour wind. Once again for today, Oranjestad, Aruba, over a 40-mile-an-hour breeze. There's a lot of Saharan dust here as well. Sea conditions are kicked up. Beachgoers need to keep that in mind. It's just a dry, hazy, windy situation across the ABC Islands. Monsoon trough still kicking up some showers and storms over portions of Panama and Costa Rica, and the better activity is going to be back into portions of the eastern Pacific over the coming days. So our front and our boundary, the big weather story as far as causing the opportunity for some additional showers and storms, but the other story is that the Sahara dust will continue to spread as we move over the next couple of days. Okay, friends, as we get into the forecast, I appreciate you taking a quick second and hitting that subscribe button. If you want your latest forecast across the Caribbean, you have found your home. Come join a fantastic weather community. Also, thanks for taking a quick second and hitting that like button for me as well. Now we're going to get into the tropical outlook and what's going to be happening in our area over the week ahead. We're going to start with what's going on in the Pacific because, as I mentioned yesterday, things are quite active, relatively speaking, in the eastern Pacific right now. As a matter of fact, we have likely our first named storm coming up very soon. Invest 93 has a 90% chance of development. That's likely going to become Amanda, the first named storm of the East Pacific season. On the heels of that, if you follow the monsoon trough back over off towards the east, heavy thunderstorm activity developing on the Pacific side of Nicaragua and Honduras now has an orange with it. So there's our next opportunity for another named Pacific storm. Across our region, obviously the Saharan air layer is going to limit any factor right now to produce any opportunity for development in the Atlantic Basin and across the Caribbean. And early on the season, we don't expect that to happen anyway. But there is an area that I do want to discuss, and that is going to be watching the Gulf. Not necessarily for potential tropical development, although I think the chance is non-zero. This is just an area that is likely to see some pretty active weather over the week ahead. If you can see on the visible satellite imagery, we do have a very broad circulation that is spinning about in the central side of the Gulf right now, and it's likely to sit there in the coming days. Now, this is a very sheared environment, meaning that the winds are quite hostile for any low-level center of circulation to develop, but the sea surface temperatures in the Gulf are quite warm, and so not all factors are pointing away from there absolutely being no chance of development with this. It's not likely to happen here, and there's a couple of limiting factors as drier air comes back down to the peninsula of Florida and into the eastern Gulf. But let me first of all switch over to our marine forecast so you guys can see that. And then secondly, I want to bring up the European ensemble members. This is one model suite that continues to show just a little bit of development as we get towards late Thursday and Friday in the north central Gulf. It's not much, but it's the only model that takes what you see out there right now and tries to do a little something with it. If nothing else, it's just going to continue to spread moisture into the western Gulf. North Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, likely to get very wet. Now, if you notice, I didn't mention Florida, and that's because when I go over to the models here, And I'm going to bring up the humidity here. I want to show you guys this drier air coming in with this front. So let me bring up the dew points and then loop this through. Whatever is going to try and get broadly organized, even at the mid-levels in the Gulf, has no chance to come off towards the east because we have a true, legitimate cold front working its way down the peninsula of Florida the next couple of days. There is this broad spin here. You see that coming off of the coast, and all of that gray is the drier air initially, which keeps all the moisture back off towards the west. So I do expect this front to get as far south as at least Tampa and Sarasota, Bradenton on the east coast of Florida. And again, while initially we could see a few showers and storms today out of that, this is going to be pushed off towards the north, if anything. So it's not going to be a big rainmaker into the week for Florida. This is going to be on the north central side of the Gulf. I could see additional showers being pulled back into places like Yucatan and Cuba and potentially staying somewhat wetter over portions of the Bahamas as well. But the Saharan air layer is still entrenched everywhere south and east. So this is a more localized system, even though it's on the broader side. It's the western and the central sides of the Gulf that could see it. Now, along our cold front to begin with, yes, absolutely the opportunity for additional heavy rains late Tuesday and at least early on Wednesday. Orlando, Tampa area, Miami, Key West, Grand Bahama, New Providence, maybe even as far south as the central sides of the Bahamas as well. If we look at the spin in the atmosphere associated with all of this as well, so I'm going to bring up this vorticity product. Again, it's not the lowest level spin at the surface, but it is a composite of the lower levels of the atmosphere. You can clearly see that behind the front, there's a broad spin over Bermuda, which can bring some gale conditions there. Have to monitor the situation. Non-tropical in nature. These are where you get your subtropical storms this time of the year, but probably even far enough north where it's just potentially very strong winds or even gale conditions up the New England seaboard of the United States. Otherwise, again, there's your spin the next couple of days in the central Gulf, more than anything lifting north. The drier air keeping it away from Florida. So Florida areas that could still use some rain, they're not actually going to get it out of that next broad system. But that's the area to monitor as far as anything going on, because everywhere else is absolutely quiet. Again, the European model continues to bring exceptional rainfall, but it is in the open waters of the Gulf. And again, if it goes anywhere, it's towards places like Houston and New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama, rather than Tampa, Florida, or the Naples area, places along the west coast of the Florida area here. Heavy rain is possible for Bermuda. The opportunity for, again, additional heavy showers over Panama and Costa Rica. But the Antilles, Greater Lesser Antilles, Windward Islands, all likely to see just a few passing showers in the coming days. Not as much concentration of Saharan dust by the end of the week, but there's another concentration on the heels of that. Now, I mentioned in yesterday's forecast video, which covered El Nino in the Atlantic hurricane season, that El Nino typically brings the easterlies to be quite fresh across the Caribbean, and that's not going to change anytime soon. If you haven't watched yesterday's video and you want an idea of how El Nino could impact the hurricane season coming up in our area, I remind you to check out that video. Otherwise, again, fronts coming off the U.S. East Coast in early June could spin up some mid-level circulations, if nothing else, freshen up the winds. I do expect there to be some issues on the Atlantic side of the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and portions of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and portions of the Leeward Islands as well. Large wind and strong wave advisory continues for portions of Jamaica. And these wind issues, which will obviously translate to marine issues, is going to continue to be an issue for us here. And again, not just now, but probably for the coming months as the El Nino only likely strengthens. So the rain outlook continues to favor the spots that have seen the rain lately, keeping the Saharan dust at play for everyone else. So I'll be monitoring the Gulf, guys, for any potential signs of at least some broad disturbance developing. Not expecting that to happen. Again, only the European model is showing anything right now. Otherwise, it's about who's getting the rain and storms and who's seeing the Saharan dust. Thanks for taking a quick second, liking and subscribing. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I'm back tomorrow with your latest forecast.